Good morning and welcome to Meet the Artists. I'm Alda Donahue, president of the New West Symphony League. Natalia Staneva today will be our MC, and she's going to interview Marcelo Lehninger, our guest conductor, and Andrew Janss, our guest artist. And Andrew, I hope you know, is from right here in Thousand Oaks. He's our hometown boy. And so I've heard both of them perform before, and we're in for a real treat. So please welcome our performers.
Good morning, everyone. If you don't know, for those of you who are watching us, we're performing this Saturday in the Civic Arts Plaza in Kavli Theater at 8 o'clock. So if you haven't bought your tickets yet, go to www.newwestsymphony.org to purchase your ticket to this wonderful concert. And I'd like to welcome back Marcelo Lehninger and our guest artist, Andrew Janss. And I'd like to start... Andrew, you got a very warm welcome, so I'd like to start with you. How does it feel to be back to the community where you grew up, you perform, and now you are the soloist of this upcoming concert?
I say this every time I come back, but it really is an honor to come back every time. I never enjoy playing as much as I do out here for the people who've been hearing me since I've been 10 years old. I mean, I don't know I don't know how people put up with listening to me when I was 12, but they seem to, and no one has seen me grow for longer and more extremely than the people out here, and I can't thank everybody enough for continuing to come out and let me know how appreciated my work is, and so thank you for having me back.
Thank you, Andrew. We used to have a program that was called Discovery Artist, and Andrew was one of our Discovery Artists, and every year we invite Discovery Artist alumni to perform with us. And Andrew, you came back in 2001 and 2003, so this is your, actually you also played Beethoven Triple Concerto, and that was my first concert as the general manager as well. It was in February 2008. So now you're performing as a soloist with New West Symphony. How did their symphony change?
I can tell you, I was at the rehearsal yesterday in Santa Monica for this series, and I've never heard the symphony sound like this. They sound incredible, and it's a long tradition of improvement. I mean, they've been a great orchestra since day one, but every time I come out, it's a more mature orchestra. They start to build a tradition of excellence, and now it's expected. And so this Tchaikovsky symphony, it's going to be something you've never heard before. It's really incredible.
Well, if somebody says that it's Tchaikovsky symphony that you've never heard before, then it's really. Then it means that it's really good. And I think that this time we should say thank you to Marcelo for coming back and making them sound as well as they do. Show me your hands, Marcelo. Okay, good. Because yesterday one of the musicians came up to me at the rehearsal and say his hands sing.
That's nice.
How does it feel to be back?
Oh, it feels great. I'm so glad to be here. First time I came here a year ago, more than a year ago. It was so wonderful to work with that orchestra, and I was surprised in a good way, because I came here to conduct the orchestra, and it was kind of a last-minute invitation, and I came here and I found this wonderful orchestra. I mean, really fantastic and amazing. And one thing that I think it's very unique about the New West Symphony is the environment and the vibe on stage, because you'll see a lot of musicians, they really enjoy what they're doing. They really enjoy their playing the symphonic repertoire, and they're smiling. They're happy to be there. And that doesn't happen in all the orchestras I've been conducting, and it definitely happens here. And of course, it makes my work easier and of course, and more fun too. So it's just great to be back here in this wonderful environment.
This is fantastic to hear it from assistant conductor of Boston Symphony. That's a big compliment. And why do you think they sound so as well as they do?
I think individually they're great players. You can see they really know how to play with each other. Maybe I know some of the musicians now in the personal level, and I know they play some chamber music. And so many things that makes a musician to be a good musician in an orchestra, and they definitely have all the credentials to be to make the orchestra sound that great.
For those of you who don't know, New West Symphony musicians come from various backgrounds. We share them sometimes with LA Opera, Long Beach Symphony, and sometimes I jokingly call it Symphony 101 because they're on 101 freeway all the time. They go to Santa Barbara, and I think during the day they play in studios and they really enjoy their careers as teachers and musicians. And at night they rehearse with Marcelo and other conductors, so I think that they feel it's a very special feeling to be collaborating. And I've noticed that too. There is some joy that's like palpable joy on stage. So we really enjoy.
Exactly. And as you said, they play, for example, many of them, they play in studios and they're recording studios, and which is great. I mean, some of the music they play are probably fantastic. But they want to play the symphonic repertoire, and that's something they want to do. So when they're rehearsing with the orchestras, it's not only the job and collect the paycheck. I mean, they want really to play that wonderful repertoire. So that makes a huge difference.
And especially having a collaboration on stage with such tremendous artists and such tremendous talent probably gives them extra joy. How does it feel to be collaborating with each other on stage? And what is the dynamic between their guest conductor and their guest artist? We want to know everything.
Every single detail.
Every single detail.
Well, I can say, I mean, usually you're able to get together with a conductor beforehand, but because of a gate malfunction, we actually weren't able to do this yesterday at the rehearsal, so we went in cold, and it really didn't make a difference. There was from the first note, there's something, a trust that you can feel or not feel almost immediately, and as soon as I could sense that he was listening to me and he had the capability of anticipating what I was thinking, that allows me to feel like I can just play. When you're on stage and you know that a conductor, you're going to have to kind of help them along. These pieces are difficult, and there's only so much you can concentrate on at one time. So having somebody with just such great ears really makes my life a lot better. And I felt that immediately yesterday.
Thank you. I felt that too. It was, as Andrew said, it was the first rehearsal last night, and yes, we had a gate incident. The gate I was supposed to go through was closed. I was thinking about jumping, but then it was I didn't want to.
I'm glad he didn't. I said, don't do that until Monday.
Yeah.
On Monday, when we are finished with our concerts, you can jump.
So I got there last minute, and I was not able to rehearse with Andrew before, but I felt, when we met, I felt immediately there'll be a good collaboration, and the words he chose to tell me about the specific parts of the music, whatever he was doing, so I felt, okay, this would be an easy soloist to work with. Doesn't happen that way always, but with you, I felt the connection right away, and that makes a huge difference, because you need to, when you're conducting and you meet a soloist, usually you meet and you rehearse and you go on stage, perform, and say goodbye. So it's nice we're having this time as well to get to know each other better, and I hope you'll see the energy on stage Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So.
Well, in order for you to be a good soloist, do you really need to be a good chamber musician first so you can learn how to listen, how to collaborate? Can you, and I know that it's your passion, chamber music, playing chamber music is your passion. Can you tell us a little bit more, how did you get into it and what do you enjoy the most?
Sure. No, first and foremost, I've been a chamber musician, which means I play with smaller ensembles, one, two apart. You don't have sections, you just either quartets, quintets, trios. And what that builds is your ability to react instantaneously, actually before the instant, that you can learn to anticipate what other musicians are going to do. And that's been invaluable in making the transition to a more solo career. Because you can't just barrel through a concerto and just know that the orchestra is going to be with you 100% of the time. There are 80 musicians on stage, and each one of them is an individual, and no matter how well-oiled the machine is, you have to react to one another. And they need to, first and foremost, be together, and so having 80 people react to one person is a little bit more difficult than having one person react to 80. So throughout the piece, I'm thinking, making micro adjustments in tempo and anticipating what they're going to do. They're anticipating what I'm going to do. It is a real collaboration. It's not just soloist walks out, soloist plays, soloist leaves. It's really gigantic chamber music. And so I think I've been lucky in the beginning of my career with the Escher Quartet, which is also performed out here in Thousand Oaks.
It's a well-known. It was a well-known quartet when you started it. You were the artistic director of the quartet, correct?
Well, I was one of the founding members, and it's still a great quartet. But I left this quartet 2 years ago, and I've been soloing more, what I learned in that quartet has really helped me in all facets of my career. So.
Excellent. I was at a conference in New York last January, and I stayed with Andrew, and I stayed for about 3 days, and I probably saw you once or twice. He comes home at 3 o'clock in the morning after the performances, and then he leaves early in the morning. So how has it been? How has your life been in New York? You've been quite busy.
I've been busier than I thought I would be after I left the quartet. The quartet I started gained some notoriety, and after about 6 years I decided it was time to move on. And the thing about quartets is that even if you know the name of a quartet, the Guarneri Quartet or the Emerson Quartet, you'll find most people are hard-pressed to name any one member of those quartets, no matter how famous they are. So I was leaving a quartet with a name to strike out on my own, and I figured it would be a couple of years before I'd really kind of, dig my heels in and have a career. I was surprised and lucky to actually have more work than I knew what to do with pretty soon. I started playing with the Mark Morris Dance Company, which is what I was doing when Natalia was in town, which Mark Morris is a well-known choreographer around the world, and he has a chamber music group along with the dance company. And so we've toured around the world now. We're going to China at the end of the year. We've been all over the States this year. And on top of that, I've gotten to play with Camerata Pacific out here. I've been soloing with some orchestras. So I've been very, very lucky. Just recently I got called to be the guest principal cellist for the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, which is
a very prestigious chamber orchestra.
Yeah.
So it's at par with Berlin Philharmonic here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the States, it's on par with Orpheus Chamber Orchestra or LA Chamber Orchestra. So I again, unexpected, but it came from a concert I did 4 years ago. Somebody there heard me, and now he's their artistic planner at St. Paul, and so he remembered me. And all of these kind of seeds I suppose I planted years ago are actually coming to fruition without even me realizing. So it's been exciting.
Excellent. Well, you started talking about dance, and I wanted to ask you about the piece that you will be performing with New West Symphony. It does have some resemblance to dance. So could you please talk a little bit, maybe Marcelo could talk a little bit about Tchaikovsky and the cello piece that Andrew is performing.
Yeah, it's interesting because, of course, Tchaikovsky tried to write romantic music in the Rococo style. That's why it's called the Rococo Variations for Cello and Orchestra. But every time I'm listening to or conducting the piece, I kind of imagine the dancers and all the project, like it's a ballet, really.
Yeah.
And Tchaikovsky was such a fantastic composer for ballet music. He composed many ballet music, and this I have the image of the ballerine dancing starting before the male dancer comes in the stage, and which will be the cello, and they have a duo dancing on duos. It's really resembles a lot the ballet music, right?
And yeah, and what's really nice with a variations piece with Tchaikovsky is, I mean, just like the middle of the Nutcracker where you have the series of going around the world, you get little kind of gems of pieces, each maybe 3 or 4 minutes long, and they each have such a different characteristic to them, but they're all tied together by this beautiful theme at the beginning. And I too, I mean, it's impossible not to feel like you're dancing playing this piece especially from the first variation. My fingers are literally dancing on the cello. It's fun. So
yeah. The only thing is easier to work with a soloist than with a dancer. Usually they're very difficult to deal with. So not so much with Andrew, but yeah. But it's really nice. And then of course the last variation. I remember yesterday before we start the rehearsal, I asked Andrew, "So how fast you're going to play the last variation?" And he turns to me and say, "Fast." So I was prepared.
I mean, I practiced it. I might as well do it. You know?
But he's doing a great job and sounds really beautiful. I think for those of you who are coming, you'll have a wonderful time.
Is it a technically challenging piece?
Yeah, it's one of the most technically challenging pieces. And I'm both honored and kind of, when I think about it, annoyed that New West keeps calling me to play just the most difficult cello repertoire.
We want to show you off.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. But it translates into thousands of hours of practice for me. No, the Beethoven Triple Concerto 4 years ago is probably the most technically challenging piece we have in a repertoire, and Tchaikovsky is not far behind. And what's funny by Tchaikovsky is that it's such a light piece compared to the Beethoven. I mean, there are incredibly deep moments in it, but for the disparity between how difficult it is and kind of the seriousness of the music is not quite that.
Well, since we've been bragging so much about the piece, maybe you can play something for us.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Who is your accompanist today?
My accompanist is a lovely girl named Aisha Tashbanar. Actually, but as I introduce her, I'm going to not use her for the first piece. I'm going to start with the. I'm sorry, but this is her. She's lovely, and she'll be back. Sorry.
It's okay. You're the artist. You choose what to play.
Yeah. So I'll start with actually the cadenza, which is between the 5th and 6th variations of the piece.
Excellent. Thank you.
And the cadenza is when he plays alone, which is always a great moment for the conductor. We don't need to do anything, just enjoy the music.
It's very lovely, Andrew.
Yeah.
You know, New West Symphony has Symphonic Adventures concerts. These are concerts for kids, grades 3rd through 5th grade. And we always invite a soloist who is a young soloist, ages 13, 14, who have achieved something in their career already. And my favorite moment during those Symphonic Adventures concerts is when the conductor says, "So, how long have you been playing the violin?" And the soloist says, "Well, since I was 3 years old." And then they say, "So you must be very talented. Do you ever have to practice?" And they say, "Yeah, I practice 5 to 6 hours a day." And usually those soloists achieve something in their career. So I wanted to ask Andrew, how long do you practice, and did you have to sacrifice anything in your life to be a musician and to be as good as you are?
Where do I start with that? Well, these days, I would say I don't practice all that much, but I'm probably playing about 8 hours a day, just because I don't count rehearsals as practice. You're not able to focus on the rote mechanics of the instrument, which is really what you need to do to. So I'm trying to get that back in balance a little bit more. But when I was growing up, I started late for an instrumentalist, which is 10, which sounds ridiculous, but and I started out and I coasted on talent for a while until my cello teacher, a man named Andrew Cook, an incredible teacher and really one of the only people who was able to focus me, sat me down and said, I know you think you're good enough to go to music school, but you're not good enough to go to music school. And if you want to be good enough to music school, you better hunker down and get serious. And, you know, I just assumed that I could coast on talent. So my last couple years of high school, yeah, I had to sacrifice some to be able to really catch up to where I should have been had I started when I was 3 and really been serious about it from the beginning. But then in that, I started to realize that I really liked practice, and that's been a continuing kind of a facet of my life where I realized that I really want to see just how good I can get at this instrument. So it's become less of a sacrifice and more of a challenge to myself to see just how. I mean, I don't know what my full capability is on the instrument, and I don't know when I'll reach it, and I don't know where it'll take me. So I want to make sure that I don't, you know, leave anything on the table when my career is finished 100 years from now.
Excellent. At age 27, you can say
but
that.
that's true. I feel the same way. Somehow, it's a sacrifice, and many people think, oh my God, such a lonely life. You spend so many hours just you and the instrument and practicing, and probably that was one of the reasons I chose to be a conductor, because
I was going to say, you're never alone.
Yeah, because, you know, my instrument, it's 80 people, so I'm not that alone. But when I was studying violin and piano, I remember, especially growing up in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, which is a beach town. Many times, many Sundays, all my friends calling in, let's go to the beach, and I was, no, I have to practice. And of course it was hard, but at the same, the rewarding, it's so big, so grand, it's so fantastic that after 5-6 hours of practicing music, we're actually happy. We're not sad or lonely or you know, we feeling that we miss being with friends or going to the beach or whatever. We're actually satisfied. Yeah. So it's a fantastic feeling.
Now I know why all the brilliant musicians come from Russia. It's cold there. So they practice a lot. I wanted to talk a little bit about, Marcelo, about your life as a conductor. You travel a lot. I know that you go to, your career spans 4 continents. And what is coming up for you? What engagements after this one?
I have many interesting engagements. I'm doing my well, that'll be actually in 2013, but I'm doing my debut in Germany. I'm really excited to do that, especially being half German. My father is German. I've been there many times, but it'll be the first time I'm actually conducting there. And I couldn't ask for more. The debut will be at the Philharmonie in Berlin, which is one of the greatest hall in the world. And I'm conducting this wonderful orchestra, which is the Deutsche Symphony Orchestra in Berlin. And just traveling around. I went to Houston, I'm going to New Jersey, and of course, Brazil. I go there every year to conduct as well. And just sharing the guest conducting engagements with my work in Boston as assistant conductor. And I have another wonderful engagement coming up in November, which will be with the new West Symphony in California. So I'm looking to that too.
Thank you. Well, I remember last year we booked a guest conductor who didn't get the visa on time. And I remember opening the newspaper on Thursday before our Saturday before the following week. We started rehearsing actually Thursday before the concert week, and Ventura County Star ran an article says the first woman to conduct New West Symphony. And I get a phone call from an agent saying the first woman didn't get a visa and is not coming. So it was kind of a scary moment for me. And one of our board members, Bill Bang, he was a publisher of Musical America, so he called one of his friends in New York who happened to be Marcelo's agent, Bill Reiner. And Marcelo, 48 hours later, we confirmed Marcelo, and 3 days later, he was here rehearsing the orchestra. So it was kind of a whirlwind situation. I do believe in fate, just like Tchaikovsky, fate and destiny. And I think that it was very lovely that Marcelo got introduced to the orchestra. I remember the first rehearsal, too. Marcelo was on the phone with Boston. And then before he started the orchestra, he said, I have something to tell you. And he was beaming with pride. He said, I just found out that I'm going to be a father. And the orchestra in the back could not hear him well. And after that, one of the musicians came up to me and said, so his wife is in labor and he's conducting New West Symphony? I said, no. He just found out. So he shared it with the orchestra, and it really paved the way to trust. But now you are a proud father of our 6-month-old daughter, Sophia. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. You look great, by the way.
Thank
no
you.
sleepless nights? No.
Thank you. No, she's a good sleeper. She's a great girl. Sophia, 6 months old, healthy, cute. And actually it was really interesting because we were flying from Boston to Los Angeles 2 or 3 days ago. And we're flying all together, and my wife's staying in Denver, Colorado, just halfway to stay with their parents. And that was the first flight for Sophia. She behaved really well. So I was glad. Everything's been great. Sophia is a great girl. And, maybe I was talking to Laura, my lovely wife, about Sophia's future and already. But, of course, I don't want to rush into anything, but we're thinking about, when
giving
she's
her
going
violin
to...
for her first birthday?
Or something like that. But then Laura, actually, she thinks that the small cello, the really small cello you give when they're starting, it's so cute. So we're probably going to introduce that to Sophia at some point, yeah.
Well, she has to play because Marcelo comes from a musical family as well. When I was in Boston, I actually went to visit Marcelo, and I saw him conduct Boston Symphony. It was such a joy, by the way. It was fantastic. I met your mother, who is a concert pianist. So how is the life of a child of her two very talented parents? Marcelo's father was a concertmaster and mother was the concert pianist. How did you grow up? Was it a nurturing environment, right? Were you hanging out underneath the piano all the time?
Yes, in fact I was. When I had to do the way I found to be close to my mom, when I had to do school homework or something, was to be underneath the piano. So I could be close to her because she was practicing and I had to do my homework. So that was the way I was, still close to her. But it was music 24/7 in my house, and which was great. But sometimes I wish I had some peaceful times without any music playing, but that was just impossible. And as well, my sister is a violinist. So my father is a violinist, my sister is a violinist, my mom is a pianist. So everything together, playing at the same moment, was kind of hard. And I think, but it was a good training for me to really listen different instruments at the same time. And that's kind of the job of a conductor.
Have you ever played with your mother?
I did, actually. I played with her once in Argentina, and I'm going to play with her now in May in São Paulo. She'll be the soloist for a concert I'm conducting, which is interesting, kind of changing the roles. I'll be the boss now. But it was just a great environment, and I think it would be exotic if I decide to be a doctor and come home and say...
Your family wouldn't understand.
They wouldn't. They think, why are you choosing to be a lawyer or a doctor? That's too exotic for us. So it's just happened to be a musician. I didn't choose, really. It was just a natural thing that happened in my life.
Andrew, are your parents musicians?
No, not at all. My dad can play, I think, like 2 blues songs kind of badly on the guitar. But that's really and my mom used to play piano a bit, but my dad certainly has artistic capabilities. I mean, he was an incredible photographer for a long time. He was a student of Ansel Adams growing up.
We did a project, I think, a few years ago. New West Symphony did a project.
Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon
Yeah.
Suite. That's right, with your dad's pictures being projected while the symphony was playing. So it was quite an interesting project. Over the last couple of years, I got to know your parents as well, and both Marnie and Larry Janss, they are prominent members of our community, and Marnie is sitting here beaming with pride today. And I know that you also work with your mom on their Gold Coast Festival. Can you tell us a little bit more? You're a faculty member now.
Yeah. About how many years ago?
2 years.
12 years ago, my mom and my first cello teacher started a chamber music festival, and I mean, while she doesn't play an instrument, nobody loves music more than my mom. So, and also nobody is as relentless about getting things done as my mom. So with Andrew as the artistic director and my mom as the real skeleton of the operation, they started this festival for kids, really this high to college age. And it's grown into one of the really major festivals for kind of mostly pre-college kids, but they come together and they play chamber music. And I started out going there when I was 15 or something like that, and now I'm teaching there over the summer.
So you went the full circle.
I did, yeah.
So what do you enjoy the most about teaching?
I think what I enjoy is getting kids over the hump where they don't think they can actually do it, because they really, a lot of times you'll be teaching somebody and you can see that they are really, really close to getting it, and they're really, really frustrated that they can't, whatever it is. And I usually only have a week with them, but usually we can. I mean, I never learned more than the summer festivals I was at, because you didn't have school, you didn't have anything. You just were focusing on music, and when you're beginning, the strides you make are gigantic. I mean, to get up from 0 to 90% of your capability is so much easier than getting from 90 to 100. So even over the course of 10 days, we can really make major improvements in these kids, and mostly in their attitudes towards themselves about what they can do. So it's been every year there's been a number of kids who have even decided to go into music just because they realize, like, oh my God, I'm pretty good at this.
This is what I enjoy about Andrew. While he's here for a week, he's going to have about 3 master classes, assemblies in schools, and do other outreach. And I think it's phenomenal what you do. And I also know that you don't mind being a student as well. You went to Marlborough Festival where you learned a lot, and it's a very prestigious festival, Chamber Music Festival. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Marlborough is a place where you go. It is very difficult to get in. The year I went, they took one cellist out of about, I think, 200 applied. So it's really, I count that as one of my favorite accomplishments. But you go, and supposedly everybody is equal, but you have, kids like me. I mean, and there I'm definitely a kid. I think I was 25 when I went for the first time. And then you have Arnold Steinhardt, the first violinist of the Guarneri String Quartet, or you have Mitsuko Uchida, or you have Richard Good. I mean, like legendary, Hall of Fame type classical musicians. And you get into groups, and everyone's supposed to be equal. And, tacitly, everyone's thinking like, come on. But they go out of their way to not tell you how to play. They really force you to look at somebody who you've grown up listening to the recordings of and tell them how to play. And that's a huge responsibility, and you find yourself really choosing your words carefully because you do not want to. One roll of the eye can kind of put you in depression for about a week. But in the end, everybody, it's an amazing place. Marlborough is really, you go for 8 weeks and you're given the opportunity to just work on chamber music. And if you want to work on a Haydn quartet for 6 weeks, that's fine. Perform it whenever you want. Just take as much time as you want, as opposed to the real world where, we have a chamber music concert. Okay, I can rehearse Thursday from midnight to 2 in the morning, and then I guess we're good. So it's a special place. I mean,
thank you for giving us some insight into Marlborough Festival. What would you like to play for us?
Actually, right after what I played the first time is the 6th variation, which is, I wouldn't say the heart of the piece, but it's really one of the most gorgeous moments in the work. So I'd love to play that for you guys. And now I'd like to introduce Aisha Tashbanar, a pianist who I greatly respect, and I just met this week actually. So.
Andrew Janss, the guest artist of the upcoming concert called Variations. We will perform on Friday in Oxnard Performing Arts Center, on Saturday at 8 o'clock in Kavli Theater, and on Sunday at 4 p.m. at Barnum Hall in Santa Monica. This brings me to another question. Usually when we have guest artists and guest conductors, we rehearse in Oxnard and in Barnum, and we perform in Thousand Oaks. Marcelo had an advantage of being in all three different venues. So can you tell us a little bit more about your, are they different? How does the orchestra fit into each venue? Could you tell us, could you comment a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. There are, the acoustics are so different in each place, so we have to be aware of that and adjust. Yesterday during the rehearsals, we're working on some balance issues with the orchestra. So we want to make sure we hear some instruments and other parts of the orchestra are not too loud. And I was asking for feedback from the musicians too, because I went all those places once, so they know better than I do. So I was asking for feedback in Thousand Oaks or in Oxnard, how the sound will be in those places, where it's more dry or where it's more, the acoustics works better. But the musicians are they're aware of that, and they're really good in adjusting right away when they go to the halls. So I don't think it's an issue now. It's just a matter of, adjusting. I want to comment a little bit about the program too, because I think this program is really special, and it's interesting. We started working with the Haydn 2 days ago on the first rehearsal, and some musicians came to me and said, "Oh, we never played Haydn with this orchestra," and I was so glad that I could, do Haydn.
Introduce something to the orchestra.
Yeah.
It is a challenging piece, and I think that Haydn wrote 106 symphonies. And are we performing your favorite?
One of them, for sure. It's 100. Actually, we know 104. 2 are missing. But so to choose from 104 symphonies, it's hard to find your favorite. But the number 88 is definitely one of my favorites. And it's just amazing. I think Haydn was as genius as Mozart, and I'm not afraid to say that. Of course, I think Mozart has a better PR, but Haydn, it's just as wonderful as Mozart, and somehow I find even easier to follow when you're listening to. So I think you're having a wonderful time, and it's full of musical jokes, really. It's full of surprises. You never know what's going to happen. He's always trying to introduce some jokes here and there.
Can you give us an example?
Oh, for example, the way the phrasing structure is, you're waiting for something, and at the sudden you're surprised by French horns or something. And for example, in the slow movement of the symphony, he want the bassoons to be playing forte, really loud, all the way through. When the orchestra has some different dynamics, and really in the classical period, you don't have composers writing different dynamics for different instruments of the orchestras. That happens much later with Mahler, when you have 10 different dynamics at the same time. So that makes it special. And he was trying to reproduce the sound of a bagpipe with that, which is kind of cool. You're having this Austrian composer composing classical music and reproducing a sound of a bagpipe in a symphony. It's really cool. So
it is interesting, because what I observed during the last 2 rehearsals, that the musicians really enjoy playing Haydn too. I think it's one of those pieces where you really learn how to play chamber music, and I think that a lot of conductors probably don't want to program it because it's a very exposed piece.
It is, and I think that's as Mozart and as well Haydn, what make the genius as well. They make something. It sounds really easy, but it's extremely difficult to play and to put together, really, even though it sounds really, really easy. and as Natalia said, force the orchestra to listen to each other and really play chamber music. And so it's just an enjoyable piece of music, and I think the orchestra is enjoying to play, and I'm definitely enjoying to conduct one more time this wonderful music. And that leads to the rest of the program, which is two pieces by Tchaikovsky, but and I like the name of the concert would be Variations, but not only because we were playing the Rococo Variations for cello and orchestra, but I think what's amazing to play those two Tchaikovskys is that they're so different in styles. You have the Variations, which is Tchaikovsky, but completely different than the symphony. And the symphony is much more dramatic, and it almost seems like a different composer. So even though we're playing two music by the same composer, they're very, very different. So in a nutshell, what shall the audience expect from the concert? Well, they will expect a variety of music styles, really, starting from the classical period, and then I don't know if we're traveling to the future, in the past, because we're playing romantic, but in the Rococo style, and then we have this amazing and one of the most well-known symphonies by Tchaikovsky, which is Symphony No. 5. And it's really dramatic, but what is so interesting about this symphony is that, it happens in the Fifth Symphony of Beethoven as well, and I think Tchaikovsky was trying to reproduce this in his symphony, which is he chose a theme, and the theme appears in each of the four movements of the symphony. It's starting really, you can recognize the tune right away, and start really low, really dark, kind of a dark sound, and developing through the symphony, and in the end, it's triumphal, really.
It's hope.
It's hope, it's destiny, and although Tchaikovsky didn't name the symphony, but he wrote many letters to his brother and friends saying that the symphony actually had a program, and it was about destiny, it was about fate. And as you said before, it was destiny that brought me here to New West at first place, so I chose the Destiny Symphony. So
it's interesting because yesterday one of the musicians also commented. We have quite a few Russian musicians, and talking about Tchaikovsky program, we talked about there are two things in Russian music. It's the soul and the destiny that are really dramatic the Russian composers are really dramatic, and I think that yesterday it was just an incredible music making. So thank you. I'd like Andrew to close our program with the piece of music that he chose for this program. What is it?
I'm going to pick up right where we left off and play the last variation from the Rococo Variations. So you'll get you'll now have about the last third of the piece. This is the last one that we were talking about. I want it fast. It's going to be fast. And it's also in the morning, so we're going to see if I can.
if you could do it fast in the morning.
All right.
Bravo. That's what we call live performances. That's why they're exciting, right? So I want to thank the City of Thousand Oaks for letting us host this wonderful program. I also would like to remind you that we're performing on Saturday at 8 o'clock in Kavli Theater. I also want to thank Barry McComb, who is the new Cultural Affairs Director, who is currently with us in the audience, and thank him for letting us use this wonderful facility. And also wanted to remind you that we have this wonderful program called Front Row Club, where if you bring your kids and your grandkids, they can sit in the front row. They get special VIP badges, which allow them to go backstage and meet the guest artists and the guest conductors, and they're having a wonderful time. As you see, we are here under 35, an artistic administrator, the conductor, the guest artist, and we obviously love classical music. So please bring your children and your grandchildren and let them enjoy and have a joy in this performances and enjoy the performances of New West Symphony. So thank you.